Okay. We are able to start recording. We are recording right now. So what the topic was going to be, about chaos magic.
Yeah, sure.
Well, you're not going to hear much over there. You can kind of hear you. I mean, it picks up a lot.
Okay.
Well, I'll just pass it to you. But, I'm trying to think. I guess the idea on a basic level is that chaos magic allows you to use your own thought process and symbols and ideas to affect and even manifest your own reality.
Yeah.
And then what you do with that is inherently up to you. But then I think there's like more to it. And I guess if that's where the pretense is, then I could go into some stuff that I know about and how I use it, or you could talk about stuff on yours. Or I wasn't sure where you were going to go with that.
Let's go with yours first.
Okay, well, I guess for me, I kind of do both. So what the dude was explaining to us is that you take your own ideas and processes, and then you could even look at deities or certain things and use them completely in your own way. And the way that I do it is I actually do both. I look at deities and goddess or gods and the way the world works, and I think of that as a regular pretense under the sense that they are a certain way or this, and then I believe in them, or I have belief in them, at least with the present knowledge, and then I use my own way of working with them, symbols and certain things, and work with it in that way. And there's probably like more to it than that, but I also like symbols and things and what specific symbols are with some of these things. I'm trying to think. It's like we lost all the mojo earlier from talking about what we were talking about. Now I'm trying to get like a base here. I guess I'm trying to think. Yeah, that's what I'm trying. I'm like, what's the subject matter here? Like, what are we trying to? I guess I could explain like a way to do it.
Yeah, well, just explain some experiences you had.
So, okay. So, let's say that you... I guess if you want your reality to change, I guess in a way you could use chaos magic, but under the pretenses of manifestation. And you could say, I believe that things are going to be different for me. But then, under that pretense alone, your innate belief is all that is needed. No one else matters. And so whether people put you down or they say you can't do it or any of those things, none of that matters, because all that matters is that you believe it. And then you can manifest anything into your reality that you want. But something that I have learned through what I found is they also say that when you're working with this kind of stuff, you also have to remember that some things don't always work in black and white the way that you think it does. The universe works off vibration. And so you can say, I want a new house, or I want a new car, or I want this new relationship, or I want this new job. You can say all those things, but what is your vibration saying to the universe? You know, are you in the emotion, or are you in the vibration of what aligns with that? You can say, I want to, let's say, for example, to make it even simpler, let's say I want a car. Well, how do you get in the emotion of what that would feel like? You know, because the universe works on vibration and emotion. And so you can say, I want this, and these are the words, and you can ask for those things. But then what really actually works when that comes to fruition is not only you putting forth action and putting in the work to do so. But then you also have to be in the emotional, vibrational sense of what that would look like. So let's say you as a thought exercise, I see myself driving this new car, and I see myself down the road. I see myself in the seat. Like you can come up with all these different thought processes on what it would actually feel like to be in that moment then, and then you feel all of that, and then it's the only thing that you can think about, and then before you know it, it's basically like you're rerouting the idea of reality based on that, and then all reality has to do is then it has to give you it, because reality works on a cause and effect. If you give good, then it gives good back. If you give bad, it gives bad back. Like, you have to work with the law of attraction. And so that goes back to what I was telling you about the universal laws. Like, these are real laws that you have to follow with how the universe works. And then in doing so, you find on your own practice, or at least in my own practice, that things happen. And so then you really have to go, okay, well, how do I do this in a practical way? And even in the spiritual community and some of these videos, they can tell you how to do it, but it still comes down to you actually doing it. And so sometimes I can even just be writing in a journal, a vision board. There are all these kinds of things that seem simple and seem like, well, why would that work? But have you actually tried that? Because we can just say, oh, I want this. But then what are the actual steps and processes we're doing to get these things? All these motivational speakers that I've heard, I forgot his name. I really liked what he was saying. There was a story I was listening from him. He was like an old, what was his name? He's like one of the big, like, famous, like, motivational speakers. And he was talking about some of these things too, is that it's really just you knowing that you're not going to give up, and that, like, how badly do you want this thing, and then what are the steps that you're going to take to do it? Because you can hope and you can wish and you can pray all you want, but the universe, as much as it is going to work with you, you have to be giving the fuel there in some way. Do you have anything?
Yeah. I guess I could talk about my experience with chaos magic, or what I know about chaos magic. I kind of discovered through, like, this book that was kind of just delving in different aspects of the occult.
Like, yeah, there you go. Further away from you, because it picks it up really good.
Oh, okay. Anyways, so yeah, I discovered it through, like, a occult book that was explaining different traditions and practices, and I practiced it one time, and it was kind of freaky, actually, because, matter of fact, how I even started practicing it was really odd, because it's actually how many people practice it, and I'm pretty sure I did not have the full knowledge of that. Like, using, like, dice within, like, a ritual. Maybe I read on it, but I'm pretty sure I just kind of had an instinct to do that on my own. Regardless.
Well, what was the purpose of the dice?
To pick different pathways and have experience within them.
I mean, I don't see how that couldn't work.
No, it works.
Yeah.
No. What I'm saying is, like, how I had the intuition to do that, and I didn't have previous knowledge that other chaos magicians, like, also, like, do that.
Yeah. That's just basic divination.
Yeah. I don't know. Anyways, freaky stuff happened because, like, so I landed on, like, this is nerdy, but it was, like, on, like, Jedi. So then I, like, started looking it up on my computer, and I kind of knew it because I kind of, like, I'm a Star Wars geek, so I kind of looked into that shit before anyway, and I ended up just getting, like, a virus of some sort, I think, but it blocked it. but then I didn't fully have the knowledge that it was blocked, so I was kind of freaking out. Had this whole thing, basically got my grandma, because I was spending at their house during the summer. Basically, like, was going to drive me to town because they were going to town anyway, and I could bring it to, like, Geek Squad or whatever at, like, Best Buy.
Yeah.
And they could check it out. Honestly, I didn't know you had to make an appointment and they charge people. This guy was just very generous, I think. He was on his lunch break too, so thank you to that guy. Shout out to, like, MindGeek or whatever. Shout out to MindGeek too, but no, Geek Squad. Whoops, fucking Freudian slip. Anyways, basically nothing was wrong with it, but I'm missing a big point. The freaky part was that everything that bad that could happen did. It kind of like backfired on me, essentially. It was just that chaotic. Like, maybe because there was not a strong enough focus or something happened. I don't know. Maybe there was just an energy. I don't know why. All I know is that my freaking grandma's tire got flat, and we had to get this entire thing to get it there. Yeah, it's like every bad thing was happening. And it took us a while, dude. I had to look up. Dude, I had to search, like, on YouTube, like, dig to see, like, how do we get the spare tire from their car. Oh, dude, it was like an entire thing. And it was trial and tribulation, and I was so freaked out because I was like, oh no, like, malware and shit, like, my information's getting out there, and, like, this entire thing. And it was like, and there's other details I'm not fully putting in, just for time's sake, but yeah, it was just crazy. And I got through it though, but yeah, that was like one of my few experiences with chaos magic in that sense, or that direct.
So I'm still a little confused on what happened. You're saying you did a ritual.
Well, which was
a book, right?
No, I didn't follow. I made my own ritual.
You made your own ritual.
Yeah.
But what was the intention?
To experience, like, a mindset of being a Jedi.
Okay, see, now that I don't think any of us got that.
Yeah.
We got it now.
Okay.
And then because of this, it backfired because you didn't.
I don't know why. It's just all I know that I did, and I felt like, and this other part that I'm not telling, sorry, is that I'm really high. What up? Is that I had to go through this mindset of being a Jedi to fulfill the ritual. Because I felt like if I started this much, and I was kind of freaked out by it, that I'm like, oh shit, I have to, like, follow this through and through, or else this is not. So I try to be. So that's why there was all these trials and tribulations. It was giving me what I asked for. It gave me, like, okay, what if your grandma's car breaks down? How are we going to deal with that situation? Especially knowing, like, my grandma and my grandpa and, like, how they are and stuff about it. Like, how are you going to do with that? And then getting there. And then, dude, I kind of did, like, a Jedi mind trick in a way. Like, how did I get that guy that was on his lunch break to look at my computer?
I don't know.
He was, like, really generous and just, like, did a quick, like, that thing on his computer. Fucking on his break, bitch. I need to emphasize that this guy, like, fucking deals with fucking assholes all day, and he's taking, the people that usually just need to turn on and turn off their fucking computer, come to him, and he's on his break. And checks out my computer without an appointment. No money. Nothing.
Okay. Well, now I'm trying to think on how we can kind of move it back to more stay on kind of topic here. I did like your little story, but I'm trying to think. I guess if we're just trying to talk about it in general and our experiences with it, I didn't realize that a lot of what I do is a form of chaos magic. And I guess to kind of like make it more broadened, I think the idea of practicing magic is, and to kind of explain to some people if they don't really like fully understand that, is magic is something that requires some form of sacrifice. Or, and when I say sacrifice, I don't like, sacrifice can be a mindset or an energy, or sacrifice can be like a way of thinking. You know, it doesn't necessarily have to be, you know, something negative.
It could be a sigil. It could be
It could be
an
a
item.
It could be an item. It could be a
It
sigil.
could be like a voodoo doll.
It could be a voodoo. Yeah, like there's so many different ways you can use magic in the pretenses of that. But I see, in a broadened term sense, the point of most magic is that it requires some form of sacrifice. You have to give something to get something back, and that can be so simple or super complicated. And then most rituals, from what I've learned, most rituals were all made up, and most of them have never necessarily been something that they were following to the T necessarily from a book. I mean, sometimes you, like practicality, you follow the exact steps somebody else did to repeat the same ritual. But in general, when you're performing a ritual, it just, the way that it was explained to me is that you could do a bunch of these steps, make up a bunch of this stuff, do these things, and it's the meticulousness of doing these things that makes the ritual a ritual, because then in the end of it, all that really is required is focus, sacrifice, and intention. You have to be focused on what you want. You have to know what you want, and then you set the table. So let's say that the ritual is you making the table. The basic idea of making the table is that you have to put the cloth down. You got to put the plates down. Oh wait, so I forgot a step. You got to put the placemats down, then you put the plates down. And then we got to put a napkin first. And then we put the silverware on the left side. And then we put the fancy spoons on the right side. Like these particular kind of situations like that, that's like a perfect example, because the same thing could be said for a ritual.
Yeah.
And then you use a symbol and things like.
So you know, when we were shopping yesterday, I was kind of like really pointing out certain things that I was sorry. I'm really a mic eater, just to let you know. I know. I need to get back. It's all cool. I'm just saying, you know.
Go ahead. Just keep going.
Anyways, I'm just saying that yesterday we were shopping, and I was really pointing out things I was buying.
Yeah.
You know why I was doing that?
Why?
Because I was trying to show off, like, I'm going outside my comfort zone. I'm buying something that's like not too wild that I wouldn't get, but just wild enough that like I'm not going to my old habits. It's like, it was like some symbolic.
You know what's really funny about that though?
What?
Your mom and me, she just kept making faces, and I was like laughing about it because of the way she was reacting.
Yeah.
She's like, "What the fuck is wrong with him?" And so that's why we kept making little jokes and laughing, because the whole time she's like, "Let's go!" Like, what is he doing? I thought it was great. Sorry.
Not like she had someplace to be. She said she had no plans. Well, let's suppose.
I just
Well,
read, like, the
no.
comments.
Actually, I take that back. She did have like a date, but whatever.
Going on a date. Okay. Well, okay. To try to go back to subject again. So now we explained that, right? And I guess I wanted to like, we were talking about chaos magic, but I think we should probably just explain magic in general, because some people don't necessarily understand the concept of magic as a whole. Because usually when I tell people, and this is actually really interesting when I tell people about this, I go, well, I practice magic, or I believe in magic. And I don't say it like I'm a magician. I don't say those things. I say I guess if anything, I would consider myself a witch. But that is, like, it doesn't have to be so complicated, because most of what I practice is witchcraft. So that's why I would say that and use that term, because or you could say I'm an alchemist because I practice alchemy, or you could say I'm a sorcerer because I practice sorcery. Like, I guess it just really depends on what your specific,
Lingo is.
well, no, practitioner in a magic sense. So, and then to try to explain magic, to me, magic is the natural world coming together with the modern world, and even using some of science or forgotten science to create and manipulate the world around you. That's how I would describe magic. And so the idea is that you're using your own willpower and your intention and your physical energy, sometimes, even most of the time, a lot of the time, and maybe even some practical items, like physical items, or the energy from physical items or physical places, and trying to use that in a particular way for certain situations. But you could even say magic would be just as simple as having a routine, or like using your intuition to maybe even like predict some of the future or something. Like, magic doesn't have to be so complicated to these types of things. Like, there's different types of magic. There's alchemy, there's sorcery, there's all these things, and then there's what is it called? There's religious magic. There's like a specific term for it, though. Do you know what I'm talking about? I have it in my book. Ceremonial magic. There you go. And then, so I guess, if anything, just independent research upon those specific topics, and then I guess if your idea is to look into this stuff, then you kind of pick an avenue that resonates more with you. I found this book that was really interesting. It's like Enchanted Forest or something. I might have to go get it. And it's basically this dude explaining the world of the Fae and like fairy magic and stuff involving fairies. And I thought that was really cool because I've never seen a book explain something in that way. Because you hear fairies and you kind of think maybe it's a little silly and like it's, stuff that people say about fairies or whatever. But then when I like really looked into it, it almost makes more sense, even in like from the stuff I found in the spiritual community, because they're just explaining stuff that I already know, which is really cool. And I definitely would recommend that book to anybody. I'd have to get the name here at some point, but it's a really good book. And I've also looked at, like, there's this one in there called Slavic Sorcery. There's what is it? Not Swedish, but I have to get all these book titles. I've so many books, but I guess the idea of looking into magic is the journey of oneself and learning how to work with the world in a practical way, but I think it's more the fun of doing these things. Like, so I think I like doing physical magic, so drawing a sigil or divination. I really like basic examples of divination. So tarot cards are divination. You could even do divination with like bones, even. Like, that was an old way people would do it. Or you could do divination with numbers and numerology and do dice. You can do basic divination with just about anything. And I like even just using divination with playing cards, even sometimes, or looking at like this is a really basic one for myself. Let's say that you're in the shower and you look at your hair every day on the walls of the shower, but imagine that though there are certain letters or numbers or things, you begin to start to look at things around you as synchronicities just on that basis alone. you can say that anything has symbol or meaning, and when you're really tuned into that, then you get to a point where you're starting to figure out, is the universe talking to me, and then what are these symbols and what are these signs? And so I think you can even use divination in that way, because what's the message? And so it becomes so very specific, because it's really only a message for you. And then you could, the people go into, well, these are messages from your spirit guides, or where, and it's like, however you conceptualize that, what does it mean for you? Did you have something you were trying to say?
Oh, kind of.
Well, I can keep going.
I got real high one time, not too long ago.
I did one of these.
And then, literally made my own, language.
Yeah, I did. I have one of these. I did. So I guess that's a good place to kind of get a basis here. But I guess aside from just talking about chaos magic in general has been a really interesting thing, because most people, when I heard about it when I was a kid and things, I felt like I got some of the wrong idea, because people always make it seem either demonic or negativity attached to it. And of course, you can look at a lot of this stuff like a tool, and there are good ways to use a tool and a bad way to use a tool, and there are dark ways to use magic, and there are light ways to use magic, and I wouldn't say that necessarily one is good or evil on either side. It's really just about your intention. You can, at any point in time, if you're wishing harm upon someone, that is, whether you're saying that's good or bad, that is going to come back on you. There's the threefold law in magic. And that even goes back to the golden rule or any of that stuff. But what you put out into the universe comes back at you tenfold or threefold, or however you want to say that. So regardless, any person who practices witchcraft or any form of magic knows inherently that any time they're doing something, without a positive aspect on that, based on intention, knows that it's going to come back to them. That's just how that works. And so I would always say, maybe even as a disclaimer, to, be careful what you wish for, and be careful what you're messing with. Because if there's one thing that I know is true in this world, it is magic and things that we work with. And you have to be very careful about your intention and what you're trying to do, especially when you're working with magic. And that's why a lot of times when people say before you practice magic, you also probably should meditate and clear your emotions out and drink some kombucha or some, like do some of this stuff that really requires clarity and focusing of the mind, so that when you do practice magic, you're not so caught up in these other ideas and thoughts that jump into your head. Because if you're trying to focus your intention on building up this energy, you don't want it to be on something else. You don't want your mind to be scattered.
Listen to the main message of that, but fuck some of that other shit as well, from my perspective. No fucking be like fucking Nancy. Don't be like Sarah. Fuck Sarah from The Craft. Be like Nancy.
I don't
fucking if
we can't
something
tell people to do that.
something,
It just comes back on you.
it's all about your willpower. Yeah, it will come back on you. Maybe it won't, but I don't fully believe the tenfold rule or whatever. I do think that there's actions to everything you do, and there's always good and bad in everything you do. But even not saying I'm one or that I prescribe to it or whatever, but from my experience and from videos and stuff I saw, a lot of more black magicians or whatever state over and over and over again, be careful of your intent. And be careful on, if you really want this, do know that there will be things upon you when you do that, because their explanation is you're using a lot of your energy on that alone, and you're giving yourself a lot.
personally,
to something.
I think you got lucky with what you've done because I'm telling you my experience and the experience that I know of real wishes. It is the number one thing that you do not do to like wishing harm on someone else is one of the worst things you can do. It comes back on you and it'd be the same as if someone's wishing harm on you.
Yeah.
It's one of those things like do you want this? Because in the other sense you can wish good upon somebody and have a better result than wishing bad on somebody. You know, and even if they've done you wrong, even if they've done the worst thing that you could think of, it is still better to wish better for them than it is to wish bad.
I don't know.
That's how the universe works.
I don't know. I think that's just a different opinion on that, which is fine. But I'm also like very cautious of it anyway.
But I mean, here's the thing, right?
Yeah.
If regardless of belief, you can try it, because that's the thing. I can tell you all this and I can give you all the tools, but until you've experienced the negative that can happen from wishing harm on somebody else, you're not gonna get it. You're not gonna see it.
Okay, that's fine.
I've had to go through that with other people too. Like it's something that you have to see firsthand. You know, it's something you have to experience, because trust me, when it comes to magical energy and spirits and all those things, it takes a lot of work to work out that dark after you've gone to that dark place. That's all I'm gonna say about that.
Okay. I'm not saying you're not fully wrong either. I'm just saying, you know, like
I'm just more explaining more to the point, because like for an example, there's people are always talking about messing with Ouija boards and certain other things and getting involved with that stuff, and a lot of people, they don't believe in it, and I personally don't use that specific tool because I have other ways of doing it, and so it's like at that point it's not necessarily needed as a tool. But in general, I don't like using it because there are specifications when it comes to using a specific tool, and if it's not used properly, then you have to deal with the repercussions. But let's say, for example, let's say that you decided you wanted to do a ritual. This person hurt you, and they're in like a school setting, or not even a school, just whoever they are, and you wanted to, you know, put forth some negative energy to try and get them to stop what they're doing, or to hurt their feelings, or harm them or something, whatever the example is, you know, because some people could even do like voodoo in that example. And so let's say you do all this, that buildup of the negative energy, and then your intention of saying that you want harm done on them. What happens is there will be negative energy, negative entities on the outside of this, which are just as often as there are good entities all around us all the time, and they will latch onto that. And if you don't set up protection spells and certain things around this kind of your space or the ritual, all these kind of things, they will latch onto you and the ritual itself, and then they will feed off of it. And then all that buildup of the energy, when it comes back on you, now you and your home will be sort of invaded in a sense by all this buildup of the negative energy. And what can happen is then you can be have like spirits that will invade your space, your home, or even your psychic space, and will start to attack you psychically, or attack your home psychically, or even just physically, so in a ghost kind of sense. And so when it comes to the use of magic in this way, you have to be aware of the consequences to your actions, and that there are repercussions in dealing with these kinds of things, and that though it is not always linear or the same, there are reasons why some of these things are even not done at the place of home. That this, you would, if you were to do something, you would usually do it away from the house. You know.
Okay, so we know that there's positivity can also have its negative sides as well, right? There's like negative there's like negative positivity, right? Like
Negative positivity?
yeah, like when like someone's like maybe too positive to a point where like it ignores like actual issues and problems.
So give me an
And
example.
fuck, okay, what would be an example of that? Okay, maybe a perfect example with that would be damn, I'm really too high just for that. Perfect example.
I could probably give an example.
Fine. Well, it kind of explains itself. You know, you're just being too positive that you're not hearing other people out. For example, that's like an example. Okay. The main point. Okay, the main point I'm trying to get is that if positivity can be used to a point where that it's more harmful than it is good, would there also be an offshoot chance that something negative could also be very positive in that sense?
So, in this particular context, I would say it becomes subjective based on the pretenses. So, one person can look at an action being positive, and one person can look at that action being negative. Again, this all depends on your innate belief and your intention, and if you know what you're doing is right or what you're doing is wrong. And so that goes down to what you actually believe. But then there's the universal or the cosmic belief that is behind all that has a sense of right or wrong in a cosmic sense. And that is why...
But where does that come from?
Where does that come from? That's just an inherent truth.
Yeah, but
why is
it inherent truth? How is it inherent truth?
So that's like way too complicated to try and explain. Think of it like one of the laws of the universe. Like there is an inherent good and there's an inherent bad.
Okay.
I need to finish.
Cool.
I want to finish. I'm saying that it would be fruitfulness, if I'm using that word correctly, for me to try and explain that, because it's not something that I necessarily should explain or have the place to explain. It is something that I guess it goes back to what I was just saying a minute ago. If you feel what you're doing is wrong, or you know it's wrong, then that is your answer already. I don't like if there's a doubt. Let's just use that example. If you have doubt that what you're doing is right or wrong already, then you know that it's not right.
Okay, so if you don't have a doubt that
if you
rapist is like bad, for example.
For an example, if you believe that, and you have no remorse and you have no doubt, then I guess that's on you. Mm-hmm. But I'm not saying that that's right or wrong either. Like, I mean, that's where it comes down to, that there is still going to be right or wrong. And for an example, because we're not supposed to be the judge or the jury in this example, then that comes down to the cosmic truth in the afterlife on who decides that. And we could get into that whole conversation, but we don't have to. That's what I mean. It's like, basically, we become... as a society, we've become so attached to the idea that we have to tell you what's right or wrong. You decide what's right or wrong, and then at the end of it, you find out if it was really right or wrong or not. And that is really something that comes back on you, and it's something that none of us have any real decision making on it at all. That's why I like the example of the weighted feather with the heart and the scales. You know, the only person you really have to answer those real questions or thoughts are your own self. How did you feel about that? Was that really right? And do you feel that same way that you did in that action? Or do you feel that way at the end of your life? When you've grown up and you've experienced and you've reached all this example and you look back at your life, can you say, was that a good action or was that a bad action? Regardless if it needed to happen or not. Because we're just taking that out of there. You know, because I'm still going on it needed to happen, but was it right?
Okay, well,
That's the whole thing. That's why I don't personally believe in inherent, like, right or wrong
in that sense. I believe that we just make judgments it's just generally beneficial.
Shouldn't there be some form of inherent good or bad in any example for a universal sense?
No.
No.
It's a void. What governs that? What governs that is
pure chaos all the time. Then?
It is pure chaos all the time. That's the trick. And that's what it is. Yeah, because I don't believe that. Well, I believe just socially alone, we just do things that are beneficial. It's good not to murder because we also have empathy. Empathy is very important in this conversation. Like, empathy is the big point of this, that I have empathy, that I wouldn't want to do that to you. And that's why everything is also subjective, because sometimes people's version of like, yeah, well, that guy, you know, he freaking slashed my tires, so I freaking smashed his window. You know, and does that make it right or wrong? That's all subjective in that sense. And that's why it is subjective, because there's no inherent truth to it. And that's why, but you also have a generalized good and right and wrong. And that's why you make things called laws and and all those types of things to govern.
So then we kind of get into the idea that maybe it's not so much even trying to worry about the inherent good or wrong as it is the societal good or wrong. Because now it sounds like that's what we're talking about. Because as a society, we govern and we say, this is a good action, this is a bad action. But then that really comes down to, who are we without society and who are we with society? And I feel like maybe I try and separate myself from that, because I know that regardless of where I sit on that, my actions and how I feel about them don't change regardless of the societal belief. You know, if I feel like it's right, then it's right. If I feel like it's wrong, it's wrong. But I do, for me personally, my own belief, I feel like there is an inherent wrong and right, but it doesn't necessarily make it right or wrong. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because even in that example,
That
you know,
more sense of my version.
that sounds, is that a little bit better?
Yeah.
Because in that sense, I feel like, you know, that it goes back to what I was saying to you a minute ago. You know for yourself, with your own feelings and your own heart and your own mind, what is right and what's wrong, regardless of what's been taught to you. You know, because even people who say that they knew that I needed to kill that person, they still know it's wrong. You know, and I don't. We could argue all day about why that's wrong or what is wrong about it. It doesn't change the fact that we know that it was wrong. So he still needed to die. That person needed to not be here anymore because they were just going to hurt more people. You know, there are times that would be a good example of doing something that's wrong and have it be a right action. Yeah. You know, that gets really complicated because then you can go into war, even as an example.
Exactly. Good.
You know,
I need to hop in this right now.
So earlier, I was in the shower and I was really high, and then I had like a thought experimentation kind of arise. And first I was thinking of about humanity and all that, but then I started thinking of like Ted Bundy on his comment on his ideas or whatever on the people outside cheering his like death and all that. And essentially, I'm paraphrasing, he's saying, and they call me the monster. And then somehow or other that thought experiment turned into a monologue, and I monologue through like a serial killer like Ted Bundy perspective. I'm like, you call me the monster. Essentially the monologue was about the only difference from me killing and your killing is that your killing is approved of and mine is not. Like you can kill to have your iPhone, you can kill some babies in Iraq for justice, freedom, and integrity. But when I go out on my rampages, I'm seen as like a monster when I'm just fulfilling what I need for my life and my needs. you know. So it's kind of like comparing, you know, our capitalistic society on how it's actually very murderous, and maybe that's why we're so fascinated with murderers, you know, because we really do have a death cult society.
When it brings a real interesting idea to that, because where I was trying to go with it was, you know, back in the day, there was a couple different examples, and I mean like back in the day. I don't mean like World War I, World War II. I'm talking like when we were hitting each other with swords and shields and stuff. Like the lust for battle and the idea of war. You know, you just killed another guy because he was the other guy. You know, it didn't matter. And in most cases, you enjoyed it, and you live for that, and if anything, the other guy should be grateful because, you know, he was bested by a great warrior. You know, like there are examples of that where the idea of killing someone else and taking their life was because you couldn't beat them, but they beat you. But then you should feel honor that they were able to best you. And now they get to go on knowing that they killed someone who was a good warrior, and who, you know, they earned that right to you know, in that sense. And so it does make, you know, I feel like there's a difference between what you were talking about with Ted Bundy, because I think it is kind of a weird idea to put yourself in that mindset, but at the same time,
I wasn't praising. That's other weird.
no, I know it's not praising. It's just
praising. I wasn't saying he was necessarily right.
no, that's not. Yeah,
But
it's more the
overall point was, you know, how do we justify, or why do we justify?
why do we justify? That's the question.
Killings and
Yes.
is it right or is it wrong? And let's actually have a big actual society question upon it, and actually question this.
Yeah.
And basically I'm questioning America.
Well, and that's what I was saying a minute ago.
America, and questioning like
Yeah.
Western society.
Like what? Yeah.
Because I do agree that there's things in the Eastern world that are wrong, but I also have tons of shit to say that why the West is wrong. And people say, well, you know, at least you're not in the East, or at least you're not part of this type of Western country or whatever. It still doesn't mean that there's not something to criticize. It's like when you're at work and like you criticize this, but then like, well, at least you're not working at McDonald's or whatever their freaking cliche is. You know, it does not mean that there's internal problems within like your system. You know, and so when people say, well, it's better to be in America, yeah, it is, but at the same time, does not mean that, you know, it's a fascist fucking piece of shit, you know, and people, and I don't mean that just in this stereotypical, you know, anarchist leftist way of just calling something fascist or just labeling something fascist because I disagree with it. I mean that in like literally we have an oligarch system where we have the presidents and politicians that are essentially the same, other than these big social issues. But when it comes to our military budget, when it comes to the banks and to Wall Street and to all the mega corporations and demagogues and all the freaking Elon Musks and Mark Zuckerbergs, who all step in line, who were stepping in line with Obama suspiciously and hanging out with them, then especially with Trump, and then with Biden, but then back to Trump, you know? It's all just fucking, you know, one big giant government that's just forcing you to do what you want to do instead of giving you the true power that you fucking deserve. So yeah, I call that fascist.
Right. It's funny, like how we jump around here, but I'm trying to think on like where to go back to. I agree with all that, but at the same time, I was trying to think on like where we were jumping with the topic because we jumped a little too much.
The main fact thing. This is what DFFI would call it, a banter-sode.
Either way, I guess because I wasn't trying to go into all that quite yet. We were trying to stay on the specific topic, but it does kind of all rope in together for the most part, and all of it's gonna always rope into it. You know?
Well, I think we're perfect on topic because this is about chaos.
Right, but
I know what you mean, though.
I don't know. I guess if we want to go there, I can kind of group in. I believe that our government or the people who control our government or the secret societies underneath that control the government, I believe that they perform magic. And I believe that they perform magic in a ritualistic sense with society in it. And there is a really freaky example of this that I like to give an example because it just clicked for me when I saw it. Because in a ritual, the people in the ritual don't necessarily have to be aware of the ritual for the ritual to take place. And what was really weird about that is there's Full Metal Alchemist, where they had a ritual where they had drawn symbols on all these different houses, and they were able to take all the souls of an entire like football field or town square worth of people, and or maybe even bigger than that. I think it was probably bigger than that. And they all were subjugated into the Philosopher's Stone, and they were just killed in that way. And I feel like in a way, for that example, there is a lot of us that are aware of what's going on via movies, media, TV shows, any example that comes from the television, let's just say it like that, that is something that they're sharing to us is viewed as a play or make-believe, but they're basically coming out and telling you exactly what's going on. And I always try and push for this idea and this concept, because to me, it's silly, but what they call that is called practical magic. And so we're telling you the plan, but then we can kind of go around the idea of what that looks like on how we share that information, because then at the end of the day, we can still enact our plans, but we told you the truth. We just told you that it was a movie, or we told you that it was a play. You know, we can have, you know, let's say it in a theater example. We can have an opera or a theater go up on stage, and we can tell you the exact idea of our plan in the exact way. But then you eat it up and you think it's fake because you came and you sat down and you paid for the ticket and you ate the popcorn. You know, but at the end of the day, they came out and they told you. They told you exactly what they're going to do, and they told you how they're going to do it, and they told you when they're going to do it. Or at least how they're going to do it. Maybe not the when, you know. And so now they can enact their plans because I guess for some sense of universal law, because they have to follow that when it comes to magic, because you do have to follow the universal laws when you practice magic. They cannot infringe upon your free will. And so to do that, you would have to be aware of the plan, the ritual, whatever, however you want to understand that. And that's why I think it's so crazy to me that people don't see what's right in front of their eyes. And a lot of people understand this, and in the spiritual community, and we're trying to be a voice showing people this, but they come out and they tell you in just about every example, you know, I'm not trying to say that all these things are true. I'm just saying that a lot of it is true, and that they put it right in front of you. Okay. And like, the last thing I'll say is like The Matrix is a good example of stuff that's like this, you know.
Okay. My question is, so you have to universal law. They have to like show you, or you have to be aware. Is what you were saying. Yeah. Okay. Then what is the case of someone that's getting cursed that isn't aware? Like, why is that working on them when they're not aware of that?
So we're not talking about a curse. I said practical magic. So there's a difference. So practical magic is a specification of a type of magic. It has nothing to do with curses or these things. We are not being cursed as a population. That's not what's happening.
But how like the ritual works? Like they have to be like aware, right? For
the most part, in a kind of a sense.
True of all magic?
Not necessarily.
But then why is it universal law?
No, you didn't. You're not hearing what I'm saying. It is a universal law that your free will cannot be infringed upon. That is a universal law.
Yeah, but wouldn't that count with curses?
No.
Why not?
Because at least that's not how I understand curses. I don't even like know what you're bringing up there. Like, that's not how that works. That's not how I understand it. Like your free will is your choice, your action. You know, you decide. And so as long as you still have that, and no one's taking that away from you, you know, at least when you're practicing magic. I mean, you could technically, I don't know, you always still have your free will. That's the bottom line. That can't be taken away from you. But let's say that you want to perform a ritual or a practice or do some kind of magic on somebody, but that kind of magic, not the magic you're talking about, you would have to have them be aware of it or it wouldn't work. That's what that means. It's not that you can't do it, it's that it wouldn't work.
Yeah, but okay, but in your
So the question is, in your opinion, is the things they're trying to show you and do not in your interest?
What do you mean?
Or like bad? Is it bad? Is it like some mischievous agenda?
Well, yeah, that's why I feel like that's the whole point. A lot of what's going on has an agenda, and a lot of it is malevolent. Yes.
okay, then what's the difference from that and like a curse? And that's
Okay, because a curse is a very specific type of example of magic, and I'd have to look into it because I haven't done a whole lot of research into those kind of things, because I don't practice curses or hexes or those kind of things, because that is black magic and I don't do black magic. But in that example, that is not what we're talking about. What they're doing is not, that's not what we're talking about. Like using a curse and a hex is your, at least this is my understanding, this is just spitballing here, is your using your intention and your will with a ritual or something like that to cause harm onto somebody in a kind of sense. Like if you were to curse somebody or you were to put a hex on somebody, you could make it as simple as making them trip and fall down the stairs, you know, and then they break their ankle or something. Doing those kind of actions is not what we're talking about. Not in any way. Like I think you're like broadening the idea of a curse. We're not being cursed by the government. That doesn't make any sense. Like that's not like, if again to more, no, but
the intention is the same.
it doesn't matter if the intention is the same. It doesn't. Like a curse is a very, like, to use a curse and to use a hex is a very specific set of things, and it usually requires a specific ritual or a specific set of things. Sometimes you need somebody's hair. Sometimes you need an item from that person to be able to curse them or hex them.
But what if you're just doing your own shit?
It doesn't work like that. Or it won't work as good.
Why not?
Because it won't work as good. I don't know. Like, you're asking somebody who doesn't have a lot of knowledge in these things.
Yeah.
Because I don't mess with those kinds of things.
Right.
It's not my place, my practice.
Right.
So I don't see a point in doing so.
Right.
I don't, because that's black magic.
Right.
You could say that they're practicing black magic, and maybe they do, but not in the way that I'm talking about. That's not what I'm talking about. Practical magic, maybe we have to like look it up to give you the definition.
what is it?
Practical magic isn't like, it's a classification on its own. It's not a subcategory.
What is it?
I don't know. I'd have to fucking, God damn it, you're making me fucking have to Google this shit.
Yeah.
I can't. Here, you pull up your phone then. I can't Google it. We're in the middle of recording.
Okay.
Like,
Well, that's what people want, you know.
I know, but I mean, that's not my job. That's not my job to a certain extent. We're bringing up ideas.
Yeah, well, sure, bringing up ideas, but it's kind of
Okay, but we're in the middle of recording. Now we're just arguing.
Okay.
Anyways,
A spiritual practice that focuses.
you don't need to read it. I'm trying to talk now to keep the recording going. Basically, I'm saying, aside from basic agendas, I do believe that there is nefarious acts and works of magic to a certain extent going on behind the scenes. We don't necessarily need to say that it is specifically the government as a whole. That's not necessarily what I'm saying either. I'm saying that there are groups and people who are doing things behind closed doors that, is there to kind of do certain things and stuff. So it's one of those things. And again, we're just having a conversation. We're just saying things. So maybe as a disclaimer, these are our opinions or not our opinions. It's just a conversation. We hope you enjoyed the podcast. We are going to end it now. Okay, bye.